Welcome to episode number 12 of the Castbar. Soon the primal spirits of Draenor will be flowing freely through our bags and eventually into our wallets. Hold on to your reins as we mount up for a closer look. We get asked an interesting question that places us in the developer's shoes, and we watch the sun go down from the Iron Docks in this week's review. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. Today it is roughly 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. With me, as always, I have Evan.
Good to be here, as always.
And Florian.
Hey there.
Welcome, guys. It is Sunday, February 1st. It is Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is happening right now, actually, I believe. So you can tell how much we care about football.
We don't want to alienate any of our super fan listeners here.
Well, they're not listening to us right now.
Hey, yeah, you just gotta say
they're busy watching the Super Bowl.
We're recording right now so that they can watch, and then afterwards they can download the show in their own time. So I think we're doing service to them, actually.
Right. I mean, there's no complications with just how the hyper dedicated people. Have either of you actually been keeping up with the NFL things?
Well, I know which teams are playing, I believe.
It'd be the Seahawks and the Patriots.
Oh, okay, I guess I didn't know then.
Yep, Seattle Seahawks in their second year in the Super Bowl. They won last year. And then the Patriots, we won't talk about my opinion on the Patriots. My actual team that I follow is the Broncos. They've gotten actually significantly better in the last couple of years. And they were in the Super Bowl last year and got completely trounced by the Seahawks. But for the most part, I'm either rooting for the Broncos or I'm rooting against the Patriots. That's the extent of how my NFL preference goes.
Yeah, I lived in Baltimore for a time, so I do follow the Ravens more than any other team, being still in Maryland right now. So back in beginning of 2013, that was an exciting time when the Ravens took the Super Bowl. It was cool being in Baltimore during that game and everything, and all the rowdiness.
Did you actually get to go to it?
No. I think the game wasn't in. No. The game was in, I think, like Louisiana or something.
I don't know. I remember that year because where I worked at the time, I had two friends. One that was a Patriots fan, and the other one was a 49ers fan. And those two teams rival a lot. And I think they played like 3 times that season. So, that was fun times. In non-sport football-related news, have you guys been doing anything else?
No, just keep it on progressing in our normal Heimal raid. Actually, all of our progression is happening in heroic mode right now, so we're keeping on with the whole thing, making a little bit of progress every week, and it's satisfying.
How far are you guys right now?
We're 6 out of 7 normal and 3 out of 7 heroic. I've been skipping Imperator on normal mode just because it's hard to... I mean, I don't know, it's a little bit more satisfying to down bosses in heroic than to wipe constantly on Imperator. I think maybe next week...
well, and also Imperator is such a long fight.
Yeah, there's that. So if you wipe at 10% or 5%, that's 10 minutes wasted, and I always have to plug people, so it's hard to get people who know the fight, and some of my guys don't even know the fight all that well, so... I'd rather just do the hard mode.
More gear from heroic.
Yeah.
Then just go cheese normal later.
So that some of the skilled players can carry some of the lesser skilled players, and I think it'll be better as a kind of novelty in the future because, as we know, something special is happening in the Raid World next week.
Blackrock Foundry is opening, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Was it something else?
So we're looking forward to digging our teeth into that one next Friday.
Are you planning on doing exclusively Blackrock Foundry, or will you still be bouncing between the two raids?
I don't see any point in going back to Heimal next week. I'm thinking I want to see as much of that as possible. If we absolutely can't get the first first boss down. I'm not entirely sure how the structure of the raid is, but I think you might have to do the first boss before you can try any of the optionals. I'd like to at least see a couple of the fights, and I don't mind spending the entire raid not doing that. It would just be fun.
All right. Sounds good. What about you, Florian? Anything new or exciting going on with your end?
Same. Trying to get what little progression I can with my crappy internet connection. More than anything, I've just been playing a lot of Diablo, because if I DC in Diablo, I don't get a dozen other people killed because of it.
Are you tanking right now, then, in WoW?
I am. I only took up tanking in early December. Before that, I haven't tanked since a very short stint in Wrath of the Lich King, and I've kind of fallen in love with it. And I don't think I can go back to DPS now.
Fair enough. I always pretty much prefer almost always to tank or heal, besides like my hunter, because I don't have that option. But awesome, guys. I still do not have a raid team. Between horrible things happening in personal life and just time zone in general, it's been very hard for me to find a team. Like, I had thought I found one, and then it went, oh, hang on, sorry. I have, like, things that are going to occupy that exact time frame for the next, like, month. So, I'll just, you guys just go on without me. So, we'll see. Things might get somewhere eventually, but who knows. Moving along. Welcome to the news, everybody. There isn't a terrible large amount of news right now. At this point, we really are just waiting for Blackrock Foundry to open. So a week away, and then after that, we'll probably get a little bit more news in relation to the actual raid. The only last thing is that there is one last thing that they announced involving patch 6.1, which not entirely sure when we're getting that still. We still don't have a date. It's currently on the PTR. And that is that they're releasing a trader that will randomly appear in your garrison that will allow you to trade crafting materials, so Blackrock or whatever the enchanting dust is called. Forget what this is. It just called Drainic Dust? What is this expansion's dust called?
That is exactly right.
Drainic Dust? Okay. The different herbs, etc. You'll be able to trade those for primal spirits, which you can trade to the primal trader for. The main thing you're trading them for is Savage Bloods. You might trade them occasionally for the Sorcerous Fires, Earth, Airs, and Waters, but really, you're just going to be trading for Savage Bloods.
Well, they're also introducing an additional functionality for primal spirits besides just as a currency.
That's the recipe, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The accelerated recipes that they've introduced for all the profession for the bind on pickup trade skill materials.
And how does that work exactly?
Well, it's akin to the kind of Spirits of War, Spirits of Blood that we had back in Miss Pandaria, where you can bypass the daily cooldown on your, say, True Steel Ingot crafting, or, you know, whatever profession-specific spell you have there. And for some additional materials, you can create those one at a time for one primal spirit at a time. So, for example, I've looked up the True Steel Ingot. Usually it's 20 True Steel ore to make up to 10 at max blacksmithing. With the primal spirit accelerated recipe, you'll be able to do it off the daily cooldown for 5 iron ore, 5 blackrock ore, and 1 primal spirit in order to create 1 True Steel Ingot, I believe.
Doesn't that make doing it that way more beneficial? Like, because that's off the daily cooldown, and if those are the numbers roughly, doesn't that mean trading 5 of them to the lady for a primal spirit saves you materials in the end?
I don't think you can kind of create an infinite loop like that, like you're thinking. I think it will be inefficient as far as materials, but it will be super efficient as far as time if you have a whole lot of materials on hand.
Well, there wouldn't be an infinite loop, but like if it takes, we'll say 20 Blackrock ore to make one, and using a primal spirit makes it only take 5, and you only have to trade 5 Blackrock ore to get 1 primal spirit, you're technically saving 10 Blackrock per True Stealing it, or per, I guess True Steel would need the True Steel ore, but do you understand where I'm going?
I'm having a hard time following you.
So if
mostly because I'm not entirely sure that 5 ore will give you 1 primal spirit 5 of either type of ore will give you 1 primal spirit. So, are you talking about compared to the daily cooldown, or?
Right, because if the daily cooldown on its own, you can do once a day and it takes 20. If with 1 primal spirit, you only need 5, and you only need 5 of the material to get 1 primal spirit, then that technically cuts the resource cost in half.
No, not exactly, because of the quantity you're able to produce. The 1 primal spirit only gives you 1 bar, whereas the 20 iron or daily cooldown gives you 10 bars.
Okay. That makes much more sense then. I'm significantly less confused.
Yeah, so am I.
Okay, so then that's actually not nearly as good, but it still does at least give you the option for accelerating the crafting materials.
Exactly, and it opens up a lot of opportunities for people who are behind on their crafting or who want to boost up alternate characters, especially if they have a whole lot of this Blackrock ore or a whole lot of True Iron ore on hand, or if they're able to find good prices on that ore in the auction house.
Unfortunately, doesn't this all just, like... I realize that getting the gear for your alts is nice, but it feels like significantly hindered because you're only allowed to wear 3 pieces.
Yeah, true. I've not really run into a limitation. I'll take you through my kind of personal experience with the loot cap. I started off with 2 pieces of blacksmithing gear on my main, and also a trinket that I got from the Dark Moon cards. I didn't realize the Dark Moon card trinket was going to count towards my crafted item slot. I guess I sort of predicted that. So I ended up with the 3 pieces that way. The trinket I upgraded, I didn't want to buy the upgrade item for it, so it fell behind very quickly compared to raid loot. Another piece of my blacksmithing gear I upgraded because I found something with better stats. I think I used Apixis crystals to do that one. My third piece of blacksmithing gear I upgraded with a heroic Highmaul cache just by sheer accident. That was a stage 3 piece, so that was a little bit of sore loss there. I made up for it by making some boots instead. So currently I think I've got just the 1 piece. I've held on to my tier 3 shoulder pieces so that when I have the tier 4 available, the upgrade item, after patch 6.1, I'll be able to upgrade both of those, and those should replace the gear that I've gotten in the meantime.
Okay.
So I'm still only working with the 2 because the materials it would cost to upgrade another item from scratch are outweighing the benefit I feel like I get from upgrading an item 10 item levels.
Other people might not feel that way, though.
That's true. And
I mean, because
I'm certainly looking, yeah.
With as passive as I'm operating some of my garrisons, like, I think my blacksmith currently has, like, 400 true steel bars on her. Yeah, she has a ridiculous pile of them right now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, but I don't have anything to use them on because the only other plate character I have already has 3 pieces. And, like, I could sell them, but I'd really like to be able to just equip them, like, turn them into gear and throw them on there so that my alt... It's easier to get them ready to go.
Well, isn't the tier 4 or the stage 4 upgrade item going to cost something like 400 of those bars all at once anyway?
When it's all said and done? Like, after all the essences and stuff?
I'm talking about the powerful true steel essence. That's going to cost
200, I believe.
Just 200? Okay.
Yeah, because the first upgrade is 100, the next one's 150, and then the third one is 200.
Okay, I see. So yeah, that's 2 upgrades right there. 400 seems like a lot, but...
So it would take 200, 300, 400, 550 total to get a piece of gear from fresh to finish.
Not to mention, like, the 60 Savage Bloods.
Well, those are going to be super easy to get.
Well, it's still not going to be a trivial cost, even if the price goes down to 200 or 300 a piece.
Right. It's still significantly cheaper. What are your thoughts, Florian? You're sitting over there in the quiet.
I'm glad everything is going to get cheaper, especially the Bloods, mostly because they're right now my primary source of progression due to not being able to properly raid. I do understand the 3-piece limit, though. I imagine they probably did that so that all the people who came into the Warlords of Draenor with ridiculous leftover wealth from Pandaria, all the guys who were gold capped, didn't immediately buy their way to 670 gear and trivialize normal and heroic mode raids right out of the gate.
But why does that matter now? I mean, the Race to World First has been over for a while. I mean, the next raid comes out soon, and it'd be easy to be fully stacked. So, I mean, why do we still have to have this limit?
Well, in that case, it would easily trivialize Blackrock Foundry. I mean, like, if I could have my guy completely geared out with 670 gear, which is the stage 3 item level, I believe, then, normal Blackrock Foundry immediately becomes useless to me, aside from tier gear.
Well, that's why you go into heroic.
Well, yeah, then there's an entire difficulty that's basically worthless and has no point in existing.
A difficulty that didn't used to exist, though.
That's true. It does make sense, but I'm looking at it from Blizzard's point of view. They want us to do all their content.
There's probably people skipping it, though, is the reason that I question it. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it is the way it is. It just seems like I understood it from when we stepped through the door so that people didn't just spam gear, but it seems like it's not necessary anymore. Like, all of these changes that they've made, like the Primal Spirit Trader and removing the giving an option outside the daily cooldown, is because now there isn't a reason to time gate the crafting materials as much, because you're not trying to hold people back from advancing too quickly. I don't think there's any true downside to this anymore.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the changes. I don't think there's really a big downside at all. I feel like it's happening kind of quickly. This is going into the 4th month of the expansion so far, and we've seen a kind of massive change with this system, I think, to the Primal Spirits really, really cutting into the time gates in general, on top of the work rush order items we're getting from garrison missions in the upcoming patch as well.
Mm-hmm.
But on the point of what the function is of limiting the amount of crafted items we have access to total, or that we're able to wear at the same time, I feel like, or I can't help but feel that this is Blizzard's way of limiting gold's power as a means to bypass game mechanics. Like Florian was saying, yeah, they're trying to prevent people who are gold capped from just buying their way out of the first tier of High Mall. I think that's part of it, but I think in general, for the effect that would have on the World Force race, of course, but I think in general, they're trying to limit the power gold has over gameplay. I think it's perfectly fine if you want to spend your gold cap to try to get Memoron's head off the black market auction house, but they don't want you just to be able to buy all the armor to fill all your slots and have that give you an advantage in PvP and in PvE.
Well, it doesn't affect PvP, because PvP boosts your gear to 690 already.
Well, that would have affected it in the beginning.
Sure. And, I mean, already gold has a significant amount of buying power, because the BOE epics that drop from High Mall, those are not considered crafted gear. They don't follow the rule of only being able to equip 3 of them. And you can get, like, let's see, so you could equip 3, you could buy 3 that are like 670, and then there's currently, gloves, wrists, and cloaks that are BOE from High Mall?
As well as belts.
And belts, and then there's also, depending on your class, you could get, some of the world drops. I mean, so you could throw on easily at least anywhere between 7 to 10 pieces with nothing but gold.
That's true, but I think that those items are limited by their rarity, whereas crafted items can be prolifically made by all the players at once. Every single player has access to them if they wanted to put the resources towards getting that specific item.
Okay. The next thing in the news is not exactly news. I just wanted to ask you guys a quick question. Did you guys see the new mount that's coming soon? The crazy, glowy, purpley tiger-looking thing? It's armored?
Oh, yeah, I think that thing looks excellent.
What do you think it's from?
Well, I'm not able to speculate. Do we know where it was data mined from?
No, it's data mined it was data mined from the patch, and it's only listed as mount. It doesn't even have a name right now. For those, you can go look at it at MMO Champion right now. It's a big, crazy purple tiger looking thing with silver armor and a glowy tail.
I apologize. This was posted by Blizzard as a preview, as an upcoming mount.
Oh, okay. They also found it in the files.
Okay. So, I mean, it wasn't necessarily data mined. I think somebody alluded that this was going to be a Heroes of the Storm mount. I don't agree with that. I feel like that's going to be World of Warcraft because it's got the World of Warcraft emblem on the photo itself.
Well, no. When they mean Heroes of the Storm, it's like your Hearthsteed. You had to go play or win
Oh, I
3
see.
games of Hearthstone, and you got the mount in Warcraft. I think that's what they are saying, is that it'll be a mount that you get for going and trying Heroes of the Storm.
Well, just to go over the details of this thing a little bit, it does look like a kind of cat-like creature. I'm reminded of the Night Sabers. It's got rolled up scrolls on the back. It's got a hanging book, like a tome, with some runes on it, and it's got a shield with another rune on it. None of the runes I recognize, but the purpleness of it kind of reminds me of a Draenei kind of feel, but then again, this isn't a Draenei mount because this animal is not native to Draenor at all, so it's perplexing.
I immediately think of the Ethereals.
Is that right?
That's what I think of. I mean, like, think of where, like, the transmog guide and the void storage guide, that's the color that they always have in their little rooms, is that purplish, lightning-ish color.
Yeah, it definitely has a very arcane, twisting, netterish kind of look to it. So I wonder if that might have something to do with its origins.
I don't think this is what it is, but I would enjoy seeing something like this, is that in 6.1, they're adding all of those new pets for Raiding with Lieges 3 to Sunwell, Black Temple, and Hyjal. I wouldn't mind seeing them encourage us to go do old content in other ways by adding mounts to them.
That's true. That's a possibility, but I don't think retroactively adding this really sweet looking mount to old content is exactly the same as going back to old content and making some critters actual battle pets or adding battle pets into old content like they've done recently.
It would make me go back and do it.
Certainly.
but that's just me.
Interesting to speculate. I think I don't know exactly when the Heroes of the Storm beta is going to be over. They've had a habit of introducing these mount previews well in advance of their actual release. So if they were to give a kind of Hearthstone release-esque Hearthsteed mount reward for getting an achievement in that game, Heroes of the Storm is going to be free to play if I'm not mistaken, and getting an achievement in that game just to get people in the door, I feel like is a great marketing strategy for Blizzard to get people hooked, to get them wanting to buy the extras, buy the extra champions, the packs, the boosts, that kind of thing. I think that's the best idea for the source of this mount that I've heard so far.
Maybe, I don't know, but we can talk significantly more about mounts in just a moment as we go into a closer look. Yeah, that's what it is. Blizzard just wants our money. You'll actually have to spend $100 in the store to get them out. In which I would be spending $100 in the store. Not specifically for the mount, but I mean, if you spend $100 in Heroes of the Storm, you're going to have quite a bit of the game. So I could probably convince myself to do that. Welcome to A Closer Look. A Closer Look is a small section that we do, that we take something in the game, whether it's a concept, an idea, a feature, or whatever it is, and we really give it a little bit more discussion. It's very rarely something that might be considered newsworthy. It's just a little bit of extra meat onto things that are already in the game that we really enjoy. And this week, we are going to be talking about mounts. Mounts have been around since the very beginning. I can't speak about, like, vanilla alpha, obviously, but since vanilla, you've always had mounts, and they've come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, from wolves to horses to dragons to yetis to creepy things that we really shouldn't allow ourselves to sit on. And they're how we get around the world quicker, because WoW is very, very large, and some people might have nightmare flashbacks of trying to walk across the land back in vanilla. Because currently you're the oldest player among us, Florian, Evan. Do you remember having to do your treks across the land?
The only one that really comes to mind was the trek from Darnassus to Ironforge. Ooh, yeah, as a level 10 night elf going from Theramore all the way through the wetlands, all the way through Lochmon. The wetlands was really the most treacherous part of that whole trek. people had made corpse running in art, where you would die after a specific landmark, and the trip to the spirit healer where you would spirit res would shave off a good portion of your time, and you just do that over and over again. There were guides online the best way to spirit walk all the way to Ironforge, and that was the biggest trek that I think that was ever kind of the norm.
Okay.
Oh man.
So in vanilla, currently you're able to get your mounts at level 20, and they cost pocket change. It costs what, like 20 silver right now to get your mount at level 20? It doesn't cost much. I've never not had it, even starting a new character on a new realm. It used to be you didn't get your mount until level 40, and even then that was the slower one, the 60% movement speed one. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how much it cost, Evan?
Back in the day, I think we looked up this figure, and I pulled it up on WoW Wiki. I think it was 100 gold at level 40 or something, and like 500 gold at level 60, but I can look up those numbers while we keep talking about it.
Okay, because I knew it would bankrupt most people at level 40. In order
Absolutely.
Yeah, you didn't spend any money on anything because you knew that at level 40 you needed to get your mount, and it wasn't really an option of maybe I can go without it. I mean, can you imagine trying to run from Stormwind or from Orgrimmar all the way to, like, what's the level 40-ish zone? Like, Tanaris?
Stranglethorn Vale.
Stranglethorn Vale. Feralos. Like, from Orgrimmar, that is a long run.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm reading now that it was 1,000 gold at level 60, but with the 10%, Eber usually had a 10% reputation discount.
Even then, I mean, in vanilla, 1,000 gold, you were... Having your epic mount in vanilla was a statement.
Mm-hmm.
You had some cash that you had...
Yeah, seeing level 60 characters on a level 40, 60% boost mount was not uncommon. It was probably as many people had it as didn't at level 60. And seriously, it was intense. I actually remember my first level 60 character and the circumstances by which I was able to buy my Swift Yellow Mechanist Rider. This is on my Gnome Mage. I had been farming mobs in Eastern Plague Lands in order to level up over near the place where the Knights of the Ebon Blade now reside in the air, the little zone underneath of them. And I dropped a random world BOE epic called the Brain Hacker, which is an axe. And I was like, oh, my problems are solved.
Ooh, Evan, you still there? Are either of you still there?
Oh, I'm still here. It just, he seems to have vanished off the face of the earth.
Well, I'm guessing he got a world BOE and then he sold it for lots of money.
While I was gone, I'll talk a little bit more about how difficult it was to get mounts. I got my first character to level 40 very shortly before Burning Crusade came out. And at the time, I didn't have nearly enough for a mount. Like, I had, I think maybe 30, 40 gold. I was living in the WoW equivalent of poverty because I didn't know how to make gold. And I don't think I got any kind of a mount until I was nearly 60, actually.
And that was in Burning Crusade?
And that was in Burning Crusade, yes. I think they lowered the mount prices then. I'm not sure on that. But it still took quite a while to get it. It was a very difficult time. And I knew a lot of people, at least in my guild, that didn't get their mounts right at 40 simply because they couldn't afford it. They would just wait until they had another 10, 15 level, 10 levels or so, and need some more money.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, it wasn't so much a level requirement as it was the absurd price of mounts that was holding a lot of people back.
Well, I mean, now mounts are just such, they're just features. They're not even... You get more out of having a unique mount than you do out of having a mount in general. Because it used to be, you were lucky if you were a paladin or a warlock, because you could go through the long quest line to get... I mean, they were difficult and long, but it would save you that 1,000 gold that it took to get to your epic mount. Right. And now they just give them to you.
Yeah, but they also had to pay a good amount in the materials. I remember paladins especially had to collect these righteous orbs that were also material for the Crusader enchants, they dropped from live section of Stratholme. So you had to run that dungeon over and over again, hope you get lucky and win rolls against pug group mates, or get your guild to run you over and over again, or buy them off the auction house, and they weren't cheap.
Didn't they also drop off of the first half of Stratholme in the church area?
Yeah, the live side, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. You said Stranglethorn, that's why I was questioning.
Oh, my bad.
But yeah, I mean, and even now, by the way, if you go do that now, those actually still sell for a considerable amount of money. They on their own sell for like 2 gold to a vendor, and you can auction house them for like 15 gold a piece.
I don't. People are still using the Crusader enchants to do their battleground twinks.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what you could possibly use them for.
That would be my guess, honestly.
I need a pool of lava. I'm trying to do my fishing to get the Fire Ammonite achievement in Frostfire Ridge, but as an Alliance character, Frostfire Ridge doesn't like me. So there isn't... I know you're supposed to fish in the lava pools, but I'm nowhere close to a lava pools, and I haven't done any of the garrison campaigns here yet. So I need to find a lava pool, but I don't know if there is one that I can get to without having to like fight my way through something. I don't even see one on the map. This is sad. Speaking of mounts, I am sitting on a rare mount, because there's a lot of different places you can get them. They're not difficult. It's not difficult to get the mount feature anymore, because you can, it's like 50, I think it costs like a gold and a half total. It's like 50 silver for the training and a gold for your first mount, which you can buy from the vendors. Why do they all have to be level 100? This isn't fair. I just want to fish. But I stayed up way too late one night, incredibly way too late, because there's plenty of mounts out there that are dropped from rare spawns, and they might have some sort of crazy timer on them. And the one that I'm sitting on is the Blue Hippo that drops from Silthide and Talador. And some of the other ones that you can get are like, you probably see people on the big yellow Gronling, which drops from a rare spawn named Pound Fist in Gorgrond. And there's a lot of different options like this. The one that you hear people like slaying themselves over is trying to get the Time Lost Proto Drake that comes from where is it? Storm Peaks? Is that where he's at?
Storm Peaks is correct.
I'm just running through mobs right now. I'm totally gonna die as soon as one of them dazes me. Don't daze me, bro. So there's lots of rare mounts that you can get from a lot of different places. But there's also lots of easy ones. And this comes into the thing of, are you a mount collector, are you not? Because that's a very large difference in people, because some people really care about the prestigious effects of mounts. And it used to be like in Vanilla, and now in Warlords, that the only thing you were only allowed to be on ground. And it wasn't until Burning Crusade that we got the first ability to fly. What was that like, Evan? Because I remember Cataclysm and going into Cataclysm being able to fly in Azeroth for the first time. But what was it like being able to fly for the first time ever?
Well, it was excellent. I think I still have a flashbulb memory about my flying over in Shadowmoon Valley, because you couldn't get it until, I can't remember if it was 68 or level 70. But it was expensive still. I mean, everybody wanted to have this super fast the super fast mount, but you were kind of stuck with the slow one until you could raise enough gold to get your speed increase.
Wait, there was different speed increase? I thought in Burning Crusade you had 150 and that was it. Like that was your only option.
No, the Druid, I was playing my Druid at the time, the Druid Swift Flight form took a long time and a lot of gold in order to achieve that, and that was pretty exclusive. I'm pretty sure that 280% was Swift Flight, and the 310% was reserved for very special cases. I think it cost the 5,000 gold, which was a nigh unachievable amount of gold to have, at least for a casual player like me at the time, unless you got, I think it was active at that time, the achievement with a long straight and triplet spin, where that awarded you the Violet Proto Drake and 310% flying. They took that out retroactively afterwards. A couple expansions later, maybe in Cataclysm. But then also, I think the gladiator mounts from arena seasons also granted the exclusive mount and also gave you free 10% flying, but normally people either had the 150% flying or they were able to muster up enough gold for the 280% if they were lucky. I think both upgrades cost 5,000 apiece. I'm not positive.
Okay. Yeah, I thought there was only 150, but I mean, if there was a higher option, then that's awesome. Because I didn't really get very far until when I started the game, my friends that were getting me into the game were currently raiding Wrath of the not Wrath. They were raiding Ulduar.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pretty far behind, and I remember trying to get the gold up to buy my cold weather flying, which allowed you to fly in Northrend. Which actually, I because I had friends that had been playing for so long, they just lent me the cash, which was nice. And they were already to the point where, because it was like 225 gold, and they're like, whatever, chump change. You should have known when it was like 5 years ago when I needed 1,000 gold to be able to ride my little first pony.
Right.
I was like, 1,000? I was such a newbie. I didn't even realize. I mean, now I look at my bag and it's like, oh, I'm sitting on 40k. Whatever.
Yeah, speaking of the good old days style changes, there was a period of time when mount speed was specific to the mount itself and not to the person.
Well, and I still remember when the mount speed, we didn't have this interface. Your mount was
an item in your bag. Yeah, exactly. Just like the battle pits and all that.
Quick random question. Favorite mount and first rare mount that you got?
Well, I need to think for a second, Florian. You know yours already?
Well, my favorite mounts, purely speaking aesthetically, is actually Tyrael's Charger.
Okay.
Which I absolutely love, and I have forever been meaning to make a paladin with a good-looking set to go along with it. I think it's just an absolute awesome-looking mount, and probably my favorite in the game. As for my first rare mount, I honestly don't even know if I have anything that could be called a rare mount with a straight face.
Okay. My favorite mount, I unfortunately cannot get, and that would be the Swift Zulian Tiger from the original Zul'Gurub.
Mm-hmm.
I love that mount, and I want it so bad. My first rare mount was cause for my friend to punch me. He had been playing a long time. I was actually still leveling up at the time. And he was playing a paladin, and every day had been going to Sethic Halls for the Reigns of the Ravenlord. And I think I was like level 77 on my priest. I wasn't even level 80 yet. And I was like, you think I could do it? He's like, you're level 77. It was pretty old content. You could always try. And so I went to try, and I went to kill Anzu, and he completely smoked me because I didn't understand the concept of how his mechanic works. Because he does the crazy bird thing with the stuns, and then I lost. And then I was like, alright, well, I'll try again. I run in there, very first time I kill him, I'm like, oh, hey, there's the raids. And he's like, you gotta be kidding me right now. And I'm like, sorry, Tony. He was pretty upset. Since then, though, I've actually had pretty decent luck with mounts. I haven't had terribly large luck with, like, the end boss mounts, Mimron's Head, Invincible, anything like that. But I have been able to get a couple of the rare spawn mounts, like Silthide, the Sapphire River Beast. I've also gotten, like, a couple of the dungeon drakes, and I also have Ashes of Alar.
Oh, very nice.
Your turn, Evan.
I would say my favorite mount that exists in the game is the Bloodbathed Frostbrood Vanquisher. I love Frostworms in general, and this is the Gladiator exclusive mount that they won back in the Wrath of the Lich King. I can't remember which PvP season that was. But it's an armored Frostworm, and I think it looks really sick.
It does look really good. And a lot of the Gladiator mounts have always looked really good. And that's something we'll touch on real quick, is that there's some mounts that you can no longer get, or that are available for a very limited amount of time. The ones that Evan is speaking about are the Gladiator mounts. And you have to be in the top, 1% of...
I think it's like 2 or 5 or something.
I don't think it's that many. It's either 1% or or 0.5%. It's a very small number. You have to be extremely good at PvP, and you have to, essentially you need to hit somewhere around like 2600 rating, and you have to do it in, you can't do it in 2s. You have to do it in like 3s, 5s, or rated battlegrounds.
Right, I don't think 2s are included.
Yeah, I don't think 2s count.
Probably just because it's too hard to balance.
And there's lots of cheese team comps, and I mean, at that high of a, they try and pair you against people that are as close as possible to your same rating. So at that point, those people, there's actually this little clique of all of the people that are the professional PvPers, and they'll help each other stay within that gladiator status.
Oh, absolutely.
But they look awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the best looking mounts in the game, I think. The first rare mount that I ever got, the first mount that I got at all that I thought was rare, was the, what do you call it, Nether Ray, from the Shatari Skyguard.
I don't have those.
I was able to, I was farming gold for some reason back in Wrath of the Lich King and went back, and that was the most efficient way to get gold was to do the Skyguard dailies.
Okay.
Because we're super high level and we just plow through them, so I was doing that over and over and over again. Before I knew it, I was, 3/4 of the way through Revered, so I said, I was done farming gold for that episode, but I ended up just capping it off and got it in every single color. I think it's a really, really cool mount. I didn't see anybody flying those around at all, so I figured that was a good way to set myself apart. And that, I think they have a lot of character. I think they have cool animations. I like kind of undulating through the air. I think some of them have really cool color schemes, especially the red one I think is probably my favorite. But since I main a druid, since I main a Tauren these days, he looks a little silly. The physics don't really seem like they're all that plausible because you're balanced right up on the front of that thing's face,
That poor little Nether Ray.
Why
did I have to get picked by a Tauren?
Seriously, I feel like I'm squashing this thing. You're right up on the front of it, but at any rate, it looked a little better on a blood elf or an orc when I was playing those characters.
That's like male pandas or male Taurens squeezing themselves into sky golems.
Oh yeah,
it's like, you do not fit in there. Stop it. Some other things about mounts. It used to be, because the only way that you could get them originally was from a couple drops like the Zul'Gurub Tiger that I mentioned earlier, or from the vendors or the quests. But as time has gone on, they've really, really opened up the door for the variety of mounts and where you can get them. Now you can buy them from the in-game store. So if you want to give Blizzard more money, you are more than welcome to do that, as some of those mounts are very cool. I personally recommend the Winged Guardian, because I think that thing is very, very epic looking.
It's a transform mount. That's a different style of mount, correct?
No, that's the one that's it's the gold, not gold. It's the grayish lion with the golden wings.
Right. I thought that was a mount item that transformed you into the mount itself.
No, you're probably thinking of the Refer-a-Friend mount, the winged Nightsaber that turns you into a black cat that has wings.
Ooh, yeah, maybe I am.
Which, that's another option. If you refer someone to the game, and then they have to buy a month. I think they only have to buy 1 month. And then you will get to pick a mount from the Refer-a-Friend catalog, essentially. Which there's like a zebra with a horn. It's called a zebra, and it's a unicorn zebra. And there's like a 2-seater rocket, a hippogriff that's on fire. The transform mount that I just mentioned. They add a new one every couple of years to try and encourage people to still refer a friend. And if you really want one of these,
you just buy your own account.
You can buy your own account, which normally you can buy like the vanilla package for like $5 and then spend $15 on a month. And so you're essentially spending like $20 on the mount. And then you have another account for no reason whatsoever.
I don't know if that's necessarily dishonest.
Blizzard does not care at all whatsoever, because you're still giving them money.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they do endorse multi-boxing, so I don't think that would be unfair at all.
I don't know if they so much as endorse it as just don't care.
how they say, yeah, depending on the type of program you can control your other clients, it's all good in the hood. You can own multiple accounts and be one person. You know.
You can even have them all attached to the same BattleNet.
Right, but I'm not entirely sure they can all log on at the same time if that's the case.
Oh, they can. If you're
okay,
paying
nice.
for 2 accounts and they're attached to the same BattleNet, you can log on to them both. And more importantly, if they're attached to the same BattleNet, then they share bind on account things. So, like, your mounts go across all of the accounts, which is really awesome. And that's how you see those pictures of the dude standing on, like, 20 Spectral Tigers.
Okay, that makes more sense.
He didn't buy 20 Spectral Tigers. He bought one, and it went to all of his accounts. Actually, you're only allowed to have, like, 8 or 10 accounts attached to a BattleNet, so he probably had to buy 2. But either way, it's still not as bad as most people originally think. There are a lot of mounts that are very much represented as like status mounts because they're either very difficult to get, very hard to get, or they're extremely rare to get. You heard me mention Mimron's Head and Invincible earlier. Every raid tier roughly. They kind of mix it up a little bit. The final boss on the hardest difficulty will drop a mount, normally. So, like, Garrosh, if you defeated him on Heroic or when it turned into Mythic, he would drop the mount, the Iron Juggernaut mount. I forget what its actual name was, because it just looked like the Iron Juggernaut.
Right.
And, like, Blackhand is going to drop this big, molten, fiery boar thing. But as soon as they're no longer current content anymore, then that mount drops from 100% chance to drop down to normally like a 1% chance to drop. Because now, I mean, as soon as the next level of gear comes out, makes that fight significantly easier, so it's not really as big of a deal if you're able to do it. So this is the reward for people when they do it while it's new. You can still get it later, it's just very difficult.
Right, just to put that number in perspective, these raids reset every week. That is a 1% chance over 52 weeks in a year. Gives you, if you're only running it on one character every week, that would give you a drop, probably, probability speaking, after 2 years of doing that every day straight, if statistics were, applied to real life in a specific way. I think a lot of people can kind of combat this by running an instance on more than one character at a time. For example, you could get it in a half a year, only 6 months, if you were doing that character or doing that dungeon every week on 4 characters. But then that's starting to get a little bit ridiculous, and it's starting to turn into a really big time commitment.
And unfortunately, the math doesn't quite work. We would love so much if it was like, oh, I didn't get it this week. Well, now it's a 2% chance. 3, 4, 5. Unfortunately, every time it's a 1% chance. So in all reality, you could run it 1,000 times and that would still not drop.
So when you think about it, if you see Mimron's Head, this person either invested a huge deal of time doing heroic raiding while the content was relevant, or they've invested a huge amount of time running this instance over and over again after it's become obsolete.
Or they're extremely lucky.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is the reality. I mean, like, one of the best people that I like to look to for lore is on YouTube. His name is Nobble87. He's a great guy for lore. I would advise you to go watch his videos right now if you wanted to learn some things. He got Invincible to drop from Lich King like his third time in there because he needed to go in there for like some lore stuff, and he was just doing the raid, and he was like, "Oh, there's Invincible. Okay." That's not what I came here for, but I won't complain.
Now, is Invincible one of those mounts that you only get if you beat Lich King after you've gotten Shadowmourne?
No, you can get it without Shadowmourne, but you do have to defeat him on 25-man Heroic.
Right.
And then, like, Mimron's Head, which is probably the most unique mount in the game. I don't think there's a mount that can really compete with Mimron's Head for uniqueness. You have to defeat that on 25-man Yogg-Saron with no help from the Keepers. So 0 lights is the...
Which is doable. None of these things are unmanageable at level 100 at all.
You say that, but I have so much trouble with Yogg-Saron on the characters that I like to go do stuff with.
Is that right?
Like, on my Death Knight, not a problem. Why? Because I have Blood Boil. But on, like, a Shaman, like on my Elemental Shaman, the only AoE I have that isn't like something that I have to cast or place is Lightning Storm, which will not kill the tentacles because it does so pathetic amounts of damage.
Oh, yeah.
So when one of those tentacles grabs me, I'm just so sad. And like my priest, the only option that I think I can actually take Divine Star, but it only has the chance to hit the tentacles. Bad day all around if you don't have a... Yeah, see, you're spoiled with your Death Knight. Incidentally, if you want to go solo old content, Death Knights are the kings at them. Just go blood and you will win at everything forever.
Really good as well, honestly.
What?
Brewmaster monks are some of the best solo content classes as well.
Basically just the tanks that can heal themselves, so...
Absolutely.
I mean, even druids are good at it. Just don't do it on a warrior.
So I guess maybe we'll go really quickly through the different sources of all the mounts.
Sure. So you can buy them, which I already mentioned. You can get them traded, because some mounts are BOE. Some of the ones that drop off of rare spawns, like the what is it? The
Wolf in the Frostfire Ridge, Garn
Night Howl. Some of them come from dungeons, so there's like the blue Proto Drake that comes from the Utgard Keep in Heroic.
Utgard Pinnacle, right? And then there's also like the Stone Core drops the Vitreous Stone Drake.
And there's also the Vortex Pinnacle that drops the Drake of the East Wind.
That is a really cool looking Drake too.
Which I got that one, incidentally, just working on leveling up my Shaman. Like I was just in there and it dropped and I was like, roll? And I won the roll and I was like, yay!
There you go. There's the raids, like we talked about. A lot of raids drop mounts at their last boss. This is including the Phoenix mount. This is including, like we said, Invincible Memoron's Head. Autumen the Hunter's Steed, which is an undead-looking mount of the first boss in Karazhan as well. This is just for example.
Ji-Kun from Throne of Thunder, the big bird.
Oh, yeah. I
really want that one. Still can't solo Throne of Thunder.
I think Stegodon also drops from Throne of Thunder, but Horadon. I'm not entirely sure if that's soloable yet.
There was a monk that soloed Horadon while it was current, so I'm sure somebody still can.
Yeah, so if you're one of the better soloing classes, tanks especially, you might have a good shot being able to do that now. There is Reputation. A bunch of reputations will give you mounts once you've reached Exalted with them throughout all of the expansions.
Some will give you multiple. Evan was talking about the Shatari Skyguard. There's like 8 of those.
One of the iconic mounts reputations from the Burning Crusade was the, what do you call them, the Nether Drakes?
Netherwing Drakes, which...
Exactly.
Which those are actually incredibly easy to get now if you'll just give them a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. And then all the way up into Miss Pandaria, you have the Cloud Serpents as well. With the same kind of thing where you have to do a long quest chain. You can kind of farm the materials these days and do it pretty quickly. I think a couple of hours is all it takes, so maybe just a Saturday afternoon. I think it culminates in a kind of race, like a kind of challenge that you have to beat.
Well, they will give you one for free if you do all the daily quests, which takes like 2 weeks. Because you grow one from a baby. But
I think when people say a few hours these days, they mean you just go and collect those eggs on the Timeless Isle.
Right, in which you can spend the money to get them out. But you can get one for free through them.
Gotcha.
There's also, like, even now in Warlords of Draenor, almost all of the factions, I think all of the factions actually have a mount associated with them. There's one that you can buy for golden Apexis crystals once you get exalted with them.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the craftable mounts. So Alchemy doesn't have a mount. Tailoring does.
Vial of the Sand.
Oh, mount. Yeah. I honestly consider that an archaeology mount for some reason.
Yeah.
So, like, there's actually a mount you can get through archaeology. It's a rare craft. You can craft the flying carpets with tailoring, the flying machines with engineering. Engineering, you can make a ton of mounts between, like, the Sky Golem and the rockets. They all cost money. Jewel crafting, you can create the Jewel Tigers.
Oh, don't forget that archaeology also has the Ultramarine battle tank, Karaji battle tank.
Right.
From the Tolvir archaeology fragments, which is really rare, but really kind of head-turning, I think.
Definitely. Maybe less so now that the Grinning Reaver is in the store. There's a few that you can get from quests. Like, you can get a Black Cloud Serpent if you complete the Shadowpan quests in...
Is that right?
What is it? What was the name of that northern...
Townlong Steps?
Yes. No, not Town Long Steps. The other one, Kunlai Summit. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, if you complete all of the Shadowpan quests up in the mountains, at the very end they give you it's the only way to get the Onyx Cloud Serpent. It's a plain one like the other colors. It's not the heavenly or the thundering. It doesn't have the clouds or lightning. It's just plain, but it's how you get one.
Now, is that the only quest related mount you can get these days, since they've taken out the epic quests for the Warlocks and the Paladins?
Maybe. I don't know, because that's the one that immediately came to mind for me. Maybe. I think that might be the only one. I just knew there was that one, so I put it in the notes.
Right.
And then, of course, there's also the trading card game, which the trading card game is no longer being printed, so it's not really on stores anymore. You can't order it. They're not making it anymore. But the trading card game was around for a long time. It was a pretty decent game, actually. And inside the packs, there were loot cards. And on those loot cards, you could scratch off a little code, and some of them were mounts, some of them were toys or pets, or there was a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, really cool items. You have that really slow-moving turtle, which I think is kind of just silly.
Well, like the sea turtle and that one was called the sea turtle, and then there's the one that you can actually catch out of fishing pools, which I forget what it's called. Those you can actually ride at level 1. They only give you like a 10% boost, but I mean, it's
no, yeah, I'm not entirely sure if it boosts you at all, but yeah, maybe just 10%. It's pretty slow. It's not very much faster than walking, if it's at all faster.
It's a turtle. What do you expect?
Well, I mean, the pandas ride turtles, but they're
dragon turtles. You don't understand.
Yeah, much faster.
Get on their level.
It just is a kind of novelty. The Vashtir Seahorse is also a quest-related mount, but since it's only usable in that one zone, it's like a little bit of a cheese there.
Something to note, though, the rare spawn Seahorse, the Poseidus, he can be ridden in places that aren't Vashtir.
Oh, excellent.
But he has like a 80-hour spawn time, and there's people hunting him, and he only spawns, once a week or whatever, and he sells on the auction house for like 300,000 gold. So... there's a mount that you can get that you can ride in normal water, but it's pretty prestigious, and also you're not in water that much. There's also the PvP mounts that we mentioned, and then there's also mounts that you get from achievements. So like there's the meta achievement. So if you accomplish all the achievements in like a raid, a lot of times you'll get a mount, or all of the achievements related to an expansion's dungeons. There's mounts with those. I think that's all of them, right, guys?
That's all I'm aware of.
The other thing that we wanted to touch on is that keep in mind that sometimes Blizzard does decide to take things out of the game because they're rude. Like the Zul'Gurub Tiger that I really want, you can't get anymore. It was in the original Zul'Gurub, and then when Zul'Gurub got revamped, it's no longer available. Which made me really sad, because I was running Zul'Gurub trying to get it, and then they're like, whoa, you can't get it anymore, which just made me sad. And then, like, you can't do the Scroll of Resurrection anymore, and that used to give you, like, a Spectral Griffin. They took out the achievement mounts, which is the Black and Plague Proto-Drake from the Naxxramas achievements. Unfortunately, Tyrael's Charger, which is Florian's favorite mount, you can no longer get. That was a promotional item. Just keep in mind sometimes, like, look at the mount and make sure it's not something that might go away. Because you never know. Blizzard really likes to change things. Anything else that you guys like to touch on for mounts?
Yeah, geez. We're forgetting the damn holiday events. You can get your... the very first time that it was introduced for an Alliance accessible Kodo was the Brewmaster, or the Brewfest mount. And that was in response to the Horde available Ram, which was the very first instance where one of the other faction's mounts was available to the opposite faction. The Horde were able to ride this Brewfest Ram because, dwarves drinking, Hurley Black Breath, etc. The Alliance complained the next year. We got access to the Brewfest Kodo. Now you have the Love Rocket, the Love Bird.
That's a good point. There's lots of them. Headless Horseman's mount.
Right. There's the Reindeer Holly mount transforming item that isn't a permanent mount, but still. So I think
I actually almost have on my Alliance characters all of the Horde mounts. Because I have the Brewfest Kodo, I have the Swift White Hawk Strider from Magister's Terrace.
Right.
I got a Wolf from Garrosh, or I could get Gar Nighthowl if I wanted.
Raptor.
I have the Raptors from the eggs that you could hatch in Pandaria.
Right.
And then the only one I'm missing is the Skeletal Warhorse, which the only one I can get is from the how do you pronounce his name?
Baron Rivendare.
Well, it's not... Baron Rivendare is one of the 4 horsemen. He's in Nax. So it's like Arius or Aurelius or something that's in Stratholme.
Oh, that's a different Rivendare? I thought he was one of the Barons. But don't forget Ottoman, the huntsman from Karazhan also drops a kind of skeleton mount.
It's not a skeletal warhorse like the actual undead class mounts. Faction race mounts, thank you. The only one that an Alliance character can get is the one from Stratholme.
Very nice.
So I'm almost there. I just need to run Stratholme like 500 more times so that I can get his mount. Let's go into the mailbag. Welcome to the mailbag. You can email your questions to thecastbar@gmail.com. You can send us a tweet at castbarpodcast. Call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show, actually. I have created a YouTube for the account and have posted all of our videos. They're just static images currently, but you are able to listen to them. You can also post questions on our YouTube videos, and we can look at those as well. We currently only have one question this week. It comes from us from Taikuta, from Coriolstras on the US server. He says, "Hey guys, great show and congrats on hitting 10 episodes. I'm really enjoying the format of your show and I like the way you guys get along despite your differing opinions." Yeah, screw you, Evan. My question comes from your segment on critiquing various dungeons and raids. If you could design a raid based on lore, what segment of Azerothian lore would you choose and why? I look forward to the next installment and your responses. Keep up the good work, and thanks for what you are doing. Thanks. So, Florian, you seem to have the most interest in the response, so we'll go ahead and send the interesting guy out first. So, what would you like to see a raid based on, and why?
I would like to see a raid based around Queen Azshara and her whole Naga thing that she's got going on deep under the sea. My reasoning behind that is because it's the series of events that led to her becoming what she is and to the Naga becoming what they are very important events that are deeply ingrained into the Warcraft lore. And I feel that if Blizzard did a raid, rather, that's going back to this place, it will end up with another very strong, lore-rich and story-rich raid, which is something that I feel we haven't had in a while. Like, the last really good one, I feel, was Icecrown Citadel, where there was just really strong lore and really strong story, and the story of Warcraft felt like it was really progressing. The last couple expansions, it feels like we've just been doing side stories, and I'd like to see us get back to, like, the core heroes and villains of Warcraft and the core story elements and lore elements. So I would be very excited to see that.
All right, well, you actually might be getting your wish. I mean, because Blizzard trademarked the name Eye of Azshara, which most people are believing will be the next expansion. So you might have that. I mean, if that is an expansion based around Azshara and the Naga, which I believe are mostly based primarily now, one underwater and two in the South Seas, which are the island chains south of the Maelstrom and near the Maelstrom, you might actually be getting that wish.
That would be nice. Right now I'm not holding out any hope, but I'm just assuming that's going to be a Hearthstone expansion.
Fair enough. Evan, what would you like to see raid-wise that is based on lore and why?
Well, I've thought about this very much since we received the question, and my answer is going to be Infinite Dragonflight trying to interrupt the timeline, and we must stop them. Escape from Draenei home planet raid, where we are on the home planet of Draenor, and we have to escape for whatever reason. And we're on the spaceship as it's careening through the galaxy. And the Infinite Dragonflight is trying to crash the spaceship before it gets to Draenor. And we have to thwart their attempts so that we can crash on Draenor and continue the timeline as usual. And the reason I want to do this raid is because I want to make it available an Infinite Drake mount, because I think we need more mounts after our mount discussion, and this is one of the mounts that everybody wants and is not available in the game yet. So what better way than to create an entire raid just to deliver this mount to the player base?
Well, you could actually make it a very when I think of a raid, because Florian's idea, it could possibly be the next expansion. This could also be a very enjoyable expansion, because not just a raid as an expansion, because the Infinite Dragonflight, we don't really do a ton with them. We just do small things here and there because they keep on trying to muck things up. I mean, we could actually see an expansion based on this idea where we get to actually be there when all of that stuff happens, because that would be really epic. I mean, the expansion could be centered around the Infinite Dragonflight going to Argus before it was all Burning Legionified, and then we could be there when it becomes Burning Legionified, and then the final raid could be on trying to get away on the spaceship and stop that. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it'd be sweet, just because we haven't really experienced WoW space yet. We've been on planets, we've been on little floating ships above the planets in orbit, maybe, or whatever, if you can call Tempest Keep in orbit. I think it's just kind of floating well within orbit. Going through space seems awesome. I don't know, I can just imagine the Infinite Dragonflight fiddling with all the mechanisms. We have to go in there and realign the gyroscopic adjusters and this and that. But, I mean, in all seriousness, I think this would be a great way to have a glimpse of what old Draenor architecture was like, because if you play through the Shadowmoon Valley quest lines, a lot of it is saying, this is what we used to have, it doesn't work on this planet very well, with the recharging the crystals, like the mini quests that they had. They've got some cool pieces of technology back in their planet, and they got some cool architectural features that are echoed in Draenor, but aren't. It would be awesome to see that all in their full former glory, I think.
This is going to sound weird, but I just blew my own mind.
Well, let's have it.
Because you were talking about this, and, them being on the spaceship that they escaped Argus from, and my brain went... Because I had this thought of them doing that, and then, their first ship missing Draenor, and, there'd be this cool cutscene of, because they were originally supposed to crash land on Draenor, and you see Draenor fly by, and, because obviously this would be in a different timeline dimension thing like we are right now, and you stupid slime, get off of me. I'm trying to fish here. Wow, so rude. Yeah, I'm going to send a Shadow Fiend on you. Enjoy that.
Keep it cool. Keep it together.
So, you keep flying, and then what if this alternate dimension lands on that same dimension's, Azeroth? How they crash land from when they escape Draenor? And that's how we get to a new version of Azeroth that becomes the new world rework. Does that make sense? Like when they reworked the whole planet with Cataclysm, we see another rework of the whole world, probably, a decent 10 years or whatever in the future when all this needs updated again.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but because of all of the stuff that happened with the Infinite Dragonflight, we're stuck on this new Azeroth. And that's how we get a new planet.
Right, but I can still hearth back to Shrine of the Two Moons if I want to.
There'd be a Shrine of the Two Moons on that planet. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's what we need. I think that's what the player base wants, is more timey-wimey stuff.
They have actually, they were grumpy about Warlords of Draenor, and they've gotten over it. At least from what I can tell, they've gotten over it pretty well. So, I don't think... I mean, with the story that Draenor is, with this expansion is so far, I do not think that idea would be so much of a stretch.
it'd just be silly. I think it'd be silly flying through space in a Draenor spaceship.
I enjoy this. Okay, so we'll go into my idea, and I'm really happy that all of our ideas are extremely different. We didn't talk about this beforehand. So it was originally supposed to be that there was supposed to be a raid that was centered around the Nerubians and Wrath of the Lich King. There was supposed to be, one of the patches was supposed to be a big patch that involved going underneath Northrend to where all of the Nerubian people live, and it just turned out to being those two little dungeons,
right?
Ankahet and what was the other one called?
I never remember the name of the other one.
I don't know. Anyway, it was
the spiderweb tunnel or something.
It just ended up being cut all the way down to just those two dungeons. But I would really like to see whether it's a raid or an expansion, like most of these have been really more closely derived towards, a expansion/raid that is not only just centered around them, because they have but everything that's beneath the surface of Azeroth. Because during the Cataclysm rework, the dwarves outside of Uldaman, found they went crazy, and then they died because they found something. And we know that a lot of the Titan past and everything is locked beneath the surface. I mean, you can see from the little town diagram in Uldaman that it used to be a full-fledged, full-size town. And there's constantly hints that there's a whole bunch of stuff underneath Azeroth. So I would really like to see an expansion or a raid that is more directed towards that. And maybe not completely Titan, but we also know that, Yogg-Saron is literally just trapped underneath the surface up in Northrend. He's still very much alive, and he's just being held in his cage that is underneath Northrend. So I would really like to see, maybe it's this involvement of old gods and titans and God knows what else that exists underneath the surface, but we haven't went underneath, what's truly underneath the surface of Azeroth, because there clearly is an entire another avenue of our world that exists below there, between, obviously, the Nerubians up in Northrend, which everything about them is really cool. I mean, and then, a lot of the Mantid stuff even started to show towards underground, and there was Titan stuff underneath Pandaria, and just, there's so many secrets that are locked underneath the earth that I really want to see what's down there, and I'd love a raid an expansion and/or a raid based on this. I mean, especially because we believe there to be, we know there's another old god that is locked underneath our world surface somewhere, and there's also a little bit of evidence that shows a Titan might be locked here too. And I would like to see us really get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I want to see a collaboration between Bren Bronzebeard and Harrison Jones and Lou Arcacho.
This sounds like the greatest zombie killing team ever.
Hey, just because we always want answers, that little 5-man that precedes the Old Kingdom, Ankahet, was Azul Nerub was the name of that other dungeon, the other 5-man.
Thank you very much.
Azul. So, I think you can only pronounce this name correctly if you have mandibles.
Maybe. That's what I would like to see, though.
Bearing listeners.
and like I said, I was really happy that all of our answers were so diverse. And it's probably because we all are very much into very different things within this game.
Well, I also predicted that one of you would mention Bastir, because that was my original inclination to say so, because it seems most likely. I think Florian's right on with that.
Yeah, and Eye of Azshara might be the next Hearthstone expansion. I would really like it to be the next WoW expansion, but there's not really a way to know, unfortunately. I would really like to see that. I want to go do a raid. I want to go raid the Tomb of Sargeras. I want to go... I would also really like it if inside that raid they brought... inside that expansion they bring back the... Darn it, I always forget its name. What's the underwater raid that was supposed to be with Firelands?
Eye of the Sea.
Nope, that is not it.
the deep, the great beyond. Florian, help us out. You remember it, right? What's it called?
I don't remember what the name was supposed to be. It was the one with Neptulon, but...
The Abyssal Maw.
The Abyssal Maw. You guys are awesome. Thank you for keeping my brain in one piece.
I'm really thinking this is the third episode we've tried to remember the name of the Abyssal Maw.
It's because it never happened, so my brain just completely checks it out. Because when I think about it, my brain goes, "Mirror. Why didn't it
If you're
exist?"
if you're a listener right now and you want to be featured on the show, help us remember how many times we've tried to figure out what the name Abyssal Maw was on the show so far.
Oh,
It's
man.
definitely more than once, I feel. Okay.
But those are just 3 ideas. I mean, you constantly see ideas for new expansions, and those are probably 3 of the more common ones. Actually, is the 3 that we presented. Maybe not the crazy spaceship flying through the air, but definitely the idea of going to the Draenei homeworld of Argus or the Infinite Dragonflight, because Argus is where the Burning Legion is held up right now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the Infinite Dragonflight, it almost seems like a storytelling cop-out almost, because you don't have to make it relevant into the present timeline. The very first Infinite Dragonflight dungeon that we had was Hillsbrad Foothills, which was kind of like a cool novelty. But I mean, we're saving Thrall, and we're going way back in Warcraft 1 or Warcraft 2 lore. Thrall in the internment camps in Arathi or whatever, but I had no bearing whatsoever on the storytelling overall, except for setting up the Infinite Dragonflight as the antagonist for the Mount Hydril. I'm not entirely sure if the Infinite Dragonflight was involved in Mount Hydril, were they? Do you know, Florian, did you ever experience that content?
I've done Mount Hydril. I do not remember anything about the Infinite Dragonflight being in there. I think they are involved, but you don't fight anybody from the Infinite Dragonflight. I don't remember the preceding events to the raid, but if I remember right, you have to go back because the Infinite Dragonflight has increased Archimonde's power to where he won't be stopped regularly or stopped in time before he absorbs the power of the World Tree.
It's funny. I can't get enough of the time puns.
Did I make a pun? I totally missed it.
No, just in all the dungeon dialogue.
Oh.
You saying, Arthas, you've arrived just in the nick of time. Oh god. Over and over again. I mean, I'm not going to go into it right now, but there's such a potential for time puns when you get the Infinite Dragonflight and Black Morass as well. That was that was a new dungeon back then. That was a new concept before you had the Violet Hold and everything with the portals opening, this and that. It was just like a different take on the 5-man dungeon. There was
Except now, whether you're leveling through it or you are soloing it for transmog or achievements, it is so lame because you just have to wait for the next portal.
I just remember doing that on Heroic back when it was relevant content and having that be like a pounding heart. You really have to time.
It was hectic.
The little items Chromie gives you an item, or like the Bronze Dragon at the beginning gives you an item that you can use to zap all the dragons in case you're getting overwhelmed and everything, and you really did have to use them. I think it was a pretty challenging dungeon. Really liked it.
And now mechanics don't matter, and you just completely crush through everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's, I mean, that's a discussion about the current state of old world leveling in dungeons on its own, and that's just a
whole nother topic.
Very much so.
But thank you for the question, Taikuta. That was fun. Yeah, and I am not bored with Warlords yet, but I am always looking forward to the next expansion. Always. Just because I always want more content, no matter which way it comes. Because I love this game. You guys have any other thoughts for him?
No,
or
man,
her,
good question. That's a whole lot.
I don't actually know.
Oh, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, let's get into a review then, shall we? Welcome to the review, everybody. Every week we'll review something, whether it is a 5-man dungeon, a raid, a quest chain, a class, a spec, a battleground. We will review something for you. And this week we are going to bring you Iron Docks. The Iron Docks is a 5-man dungeon from Warlords of Draenor, and you are storming the docks up in Gorgrond to try and stop them. And we break the review into 3 sections, and that would be ambience, gameplay, and lore. Ambience is most of the things that touch your senses, so what you see, what you hear, what you feel. It's a game, so we can't really taste anything, so that's a shame. Gameplay is the numbers, the loot, so boss mechanics, trash, all that kind of stuff. And then lore is the story. Is there any story in the dungeon? Is it any good? Does it have anything to do with anything else? We will step into ambience first, and Florian, would you like to take the first little jaunt in ambience for us?
I will. The instance is generally fairly large, but it somehow manages to feel cramped in many areas because you're running in small corridors between sets of boxes. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but it feels kind of weird to me. You go from huge areas to really small walkways, and then another huge open area like the spot where you fire the iron stars, and then you end up on more cramped walkways dodging between boxes. And it felt kind of weird going between the two different extremes. It looks good. The textures are all right. And music is also excellent. I very much enjoyed the music. It has a lot of energy. Feels very Iron Horde-ish, and it also has a little bit of electric guitar in the beginning. It's kind of hard to make out, but I think that's probably like the second time I've ever heard guitar in Warcraft. So I was pretty pumped about that. My main problem with the Iron Docks is that I don't know how much time you guys spend hanging around on docks. I don't really hang out on them much either because I'm a sailor, but it doesn't look like any dock I've ever been to. Because docks, generally with a dock, what you want is a maximal amount of water access. This is just a large area with a tiny little...
Yeah,
I can't...
That was one of the first thing I noticed. They have a boat in there, and you go and do a fight on the boat. And I got on the boat, and I looked around, because I hadn't noticed until I got on the boat. There is room for one boat.
Well, this is something else that bugged me. If you look at the mini-map of the dungeon, or I think this comes up on the regular map too, if you look at where the boat is positioned, it literally has no space to turn around. That boat cannot leave the dock. It is a permanent fixture there.
You're saying it can't go backwards?
Activate reverse thrusters.
Maybe it can. I don't know how. I don't know. If
I'm not a sailor, but I think a boat can go backwards.
Well, it would be hard to say. I mean, the Iron Horde boats don't exactly have sails.
Yeah,
I assume they're steam powered. Whether or not a steamboat can go backwards, that's for someone else to answer.
They're not paddle boats either, so I really don't know.
Well, anyway, the point is if they were going backwards, it would be very inefficient because of the way the boat is shaped. But anyway, the point is, it's a dock, and it's got almost no water, which is pretty much the defining feature of a dock, which makes it a failure as a dock as far as I'm concerned. It could have been just some generic Iron Horde base, and it would not have made a difference to me one bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would make more sense for, like, it to jut off into the side of the water, and you just pull up to the side, because they have a whole bunch of the little smaller, I guess what would actually be called, like, a dock sticking out, like where a boat's supposed to pull up next to it, but they're so small compared to the size of the ships. Like, I haven't seen any little Iron Horde speedboats gunning around, but that's the size that these docks are compared to the actual size of, like, the battleships. Because they can really only fit/service one battleship. I mean, I suppose they could add multiple walkways onto the same ship, but there's still only room for one ship. Which is not how you want your dock to be, especially if you're trying to work on a fleet.
Right. There's a possibility this is only one of the docks, you know.
Not according to the map, but I guess this also does go into the whole idea of that what we see in the game isn't necessarily exactly transcribed to how it would be if this was a real place.
Right.
That is true, but we are reviewing what it looks like visually.
Fair.
Its failure as a dock in my eyes.
It is not very effective.
As far as other Iron Horde boats that we've seen in order to compare the size of this boat, if this is like a standard size boat, I think if we look at the attack on Shatrith, this boat is about the same size as all the other boats we've seen, also including the boat that we came over on when we were escaping from Talador in the intro sequence. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I believe all of them are roughly the same size. I mean, even the one that's in the, like you said, in the Talador cutscene, I believe is the same size.
So, yeah, I can't imagine that this is an overly large boat, and the dock actually does service quite a few normal-sized boats. Um, it's hard to say. I do agree with Florian on the music. I think the music is excellent. I thought it actually had a bit of a nautical feel. I'm not sure if anybody else agrees with me on that. With the horns, it kind of reminded me of a swashbuckling, almost like the kind of music you'd be hearing during the Pirates of the Caribbean music.
That was exactly what I was about to make in comparison to, and it's not like the Pirates of the Caribbean like most people think of the actual theme of the movie. It's more of the real good, like almost like tension filled, energy filled, without being loud and in your face music. That really has like a very strong undertone without the real loud blaring instruments.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is the same kind of tension building music that I would expect if we were sieging a big kind of, citadel, honestly, like a dark stone kind of fortress. So it doesn't necessarily, I say nautical. Yeah, it does have a nautical feel, I think, just because of how reminiscent it is of that movie score in particular. But I think it is kind of flexible. I do like the amount of tension they're able to create in a song like this and a soundtrack like this. And it gives me high hopes for Blackrock Foundry in general. I haven't looked at any of the music. I'm not sure if that's been pulled off the beta and put on Wowhead. I'm sure it probably has.
Also, Blizzard in general is fantastic at making music loop beautifully. Like the music doesn't fade out and fade back in, like fade out to end and start over and fade up again. It just continues playing, and that is something not necessarily just for this dungeon that I just need to give Blizzard like a props on in general, of that they can just keep music going without needing to they create great points for it to loop onto itself, which is commendable.
Right, which is a huge difference between working with video game music compared to cinematic score or music on the radio.
The other thing I wanted to touch on for ambience is that the dialogue from the two guys on the boat, which incidentally, I don't know the actual boatman's name right offhand. I know that the final boss is Skoluk, which is the son of Grohl, and you fight the other dudes at the same time. I don't remember the other dudes' names, but there's the captain of the boat and what is probably his first mate. And their dialogue is wonderful. And it like, as you're, trudging along the dock, fighting through, pack after pack of their goons, it just makes it's not silly, but it's the perfect amount of comedy to take edge off to where it doesn't feel as rough. Even though, I mean, it's a game, so I mean, it's not like, you're trying to add a comedic plug into, a movie who's too serious for itself. But it was just the nice little bits of refreshment as you, wipe through one group of his trash, and he's like, whatever, I didn't need them anyway, they're weak. But sir, all our guys are dying. But I'm the smart one, or whatever it is he says.
I'm the smart one, you're the dumb one. He has like trail galls in his heads talking to one another. Only a little bit less kind of weird. Yeah, I agree. I think the comic relief is good. I don't like comic relief in excess. If you have an entire raid, like what comes to mind is Icecrown Citadel, and you have the Festergut, there's some comic relief for those two kind of abomination guys.
What? Precious? No!
Yeah, that kind of thing. And the robot in Ulduar and all that.
Oh my god, he's one of my favorite things ever.
It has a place, but I like that Blizzard also can kind of put the jokes away when they want to create a big kind of epic feel to their dungeons and raids, especially. So I like that this one is tempered. It's a 5-man. They have the really epic music, but they're saying this is just like a silly kind of, you're cleaning out the riffraff. This isn't supposed to be the serious challenge you guys are facing on this continent.
Sure. So, Evan, then, lore grade.
I'm going to give
Not lore. Wow, I always give you guys the wrong piece that we're on. Ambience grade.
I'm going to give the ambience grade a B. Music gives it a high score. I think the layout is Good. I think the doubling back on itself makes the dungeon longer than the space that we're in would suggest.
It is pretty
And
linear, and they definitely are like hand feeding you and guiding you along by a string.
that might be more of a gameplay discussion, honestly, though. But as far as the ambience, I think it is successful in what it's trying to convey, which isn't much.
Sure.
And so I'll give it a B. It didn't go above and beyond, blow me away, kind of like Dune did, but it's a solid footing for the gameplay, I think.
Florian, how about you? What's your ambience grade?
I'd agree with Evan on this one. I feel it deserves a B. It looks good. It sounds good. It just fails at its fundamental job of being a dock, and it doesn't have anything really great that stands out to me. There wasn't, when we decided to review this, there wasn't at first anything major that popped out to me, and I had to go back through the dungeon before I noticed anything. And the fact that I couldn't remember anything of significance from this dungeon tells me that it didn't really go very far to make itself original and interesting.
Yeah, it's not very memorable. And, I mean, it really is attributed to, like, there's not really anything here that is really going to wow you visual-wise anyway. I mean, it really is just a military dock. So it doesn't surprise me that there isn't anything, grandiose? Grandioso? No, that's a music term. Anything grandiose happening around you that, would really catch your eye, because, I mean, most of the time, you live on a military base. There isn't anything very spectacular happening there, I wouldn't believe.
Nothing I can tell you about.
Oh, getting all secrecy.
That's classified.
No, I'm sorry, that's a G-14 classified. Name the movie. Anyone? Maybe? No? Anyway. Gameplay. So, this is the numbers, the bosses. I'll go ahead and take the first steps. Gameplay good is the only note that I got. The gameplay in it's pretty good. I really enjoy being able to skip trash. And I've realized that it is not the same as there being less trash. I enjoy being able to skip trash. I don't know why that makes such a difference for me, but it does. There is a difference between being able to skip trash and there just being less of it. So it looks like there's a lot, but you can actually get around quite a bit of it. The only thing, I guess this blends gameplay and lore just a little bit. It always confuses me when we're like on these docks and there's a whole bunch of people everywhere. It's for the purpose of a game, but in reality, these people should all be swarming us. It's just like, 5 dudes came to take the whole dock? Well, guess all 100 of us will just go trounce on them.
That brings up an important point of how I can kill this guy's friends in his line of sight, but if I'm not in his aggro radius, he won't do a single thing to stop me.
Johnny's got him.
Johnny, he seems like he's got him.
Oh, God, help me! Give him the hook, Johnny!
It's like, this guy beside me just turned into a block of ice, and the guy on the other side of me just turned into a pig. And this undead mage, is stink-eyeing me from 10.5 yards away.
Should I be concerned? I mean, Bill's over there trying to get his feet out of some roots. He's frozen. He's a pig. Nah, I'm sure everything's fine. Hunter pokes him with a rock. Oh, you son of a... Your friends are still back there trapped in ice. Don't care.
Wait, like, why are you attacking that hunter? I'm pretty sure that warrior was the one that shot you with that bow.
Right? Oh, gameplay. The mechanics of a game in reality to how this would actually happen are incredibly entertaining. But, the gameplay is good. I mean, like, the bosses... I also enjoyed that the first boss, I did not realize he was a boss until he was, like, coming on to us. In a non-naughty fashion. I realized that sounded weird. No, oh my. But, because, like, he's just, a dude on a wolf. And I was like, there's a dude on a wolf up there. Anyway, moving along, then the tank, like, charges him and is like, you have engaged such and such. Because he wasn't a memorable dude. He was just, boss number 1. And, I was surprised by that. I was like, you're a thing that we need to kill, apparently. Alright then. But the other bosses, I enjoyed the. I also really enjoy personally group versus group fights. So like the like council fights, like in Black Temple, or there was also the 5-man group that you have to fight in Magister's Terrace. I enjoyed those. I enjoy fights that have multiple things to concern myself with, multiple targets rather than just mechanics that come from multiple areas. And there was some legitimately concerning mechanics in there. I mean, the very last fight, he throws you to the back of the boat and then he loads up his cannons, and if you don't hide, you will die.
Have we seen this mechanic before, where you have to hide behind cover and kind of American Gladiator your way back to the front?
They did it in Grimrail Depot on the second boss, the one who blows the walls off.
I suppose, yeah, the cover does help you in that boss. It's a little bit different.
But this specifically, like, they've used cover mechanics before. I mean, like, the Scarlet Halls or Scarlet Monastery, you have to grab the targets to hide from the archers.
That's it's similar to that.
I mean, so...
Yeah, that's strange.
They have things that are similar, but not this mechanic specifically.
Right. I think, my feelings would be different if I were to try this on challenge mode, which is when boss mechanics really start getting to be really important and they throw a couple more mechanics in there. But honestly, aside from the novelty of the last boss knocking you back and having to make your way up, I love choosing that, by the way, with a Warlock, a Demonic Gateway, Demonic Portal. You give your rogue a speed boost, and you don't even have... You can interrupt the very first cannon barrage.
Right.
But that... other than that, every single one of these bosses is completely forgettable. And I'm sorry to say that, but the first boss, I don't even remember really what he does. I think he puts some fire AoE on the ground that you have to avoid, and that can really mess up healers if DPS don't get out of it. The trio of bosses there, you have the bomb squad thing. Really, a little bit of abrasion on that voiceover with that female goblin, I have to say. And I'm not entirely even sure what the other two bosses do. I think one of them has a shield or a life steal or something. The third boss, the Saberon, that he'll knock you down, Mogushan Vault style. And
the Saberon felt like a complete pushover.
Yeah, he
went down like a sack of bricks.
And I've never had any problem dealing with mechanics on any difficulty, heroic or normal, in this boss at all, or in this whole dungeon. So I'm thinking, I mean, I don't really like talk smack, but I really think they phoned it in. Not like taking that hardline opinion really against Blizzard's work, but I'm feeling like I really have to try the challenge mode in order to seize the redeeming qualities of this dungeon and to see some actual thought put into the mechanics, or maybe something that is just tuned to be a challenge at any gear level.
Well, and like I won't remember the bosses. Like I don't remember any of their names besides Skolok, and that's just because they say it like 15 times. I just enjoyed them. They were enjoyable with enjoyable mechanics.
Right.
Well, they were fun to play. They just weren't very interesting or memorable in any real way, with the exception of the final fight, where you're kind of caught between the Skolok, who is shooting at you, and you've got the blast furnace shooting out fire behind you. That's kind of... It can be a little bit tense sometimes. But aside from that, yeah, I feel overall it's a bit too easy, too generic, and it's just not that original.
Right. Enough. And comparing it to some of the other dungeons, even the ones we've talked about, you have Shadow Moon Burial Grounds where, I mean, every single boss has like, the runes on the ground, you have to protect yourself from the big AoE and this and that, and stop the sacrificing this as it floats across the screen, and then it makes all of your teammates disappear, and you have to kill a shade and come back and avoid the gravity well, and then the wall of bones, it's going to kill you if you don't focus the one and break into it. I mean, that's really exciting stuff. And then you have the Grimrail Depot, where even the last boss, it's not all that interesting, but you have to avoid the freezing trap, avoid the spear, while you're avoiding this crazy amount of ground AoE, dancing around, finding the clean spot on the whole arena. The second to last boss, when he blows away the walls, and you have to fight the wind while you gather up the adds and pick up the cannon. I mean, it's really cool stuff. and I can't even name one of the mechanics on the first boss. The second boss seems like they're all kind of underwhelming. And I'm not entirely sure if it's a numbers issue, like a tuning issue, or just like a lack of kind of imagination execution on this one.
I don't know.
Comparatively, I'm saying
the mechanics. There's less of them, and they're less impactful gameplay wise than a lot of other examples like you gave. And I do agree. I still just enjoyed them. I will say I didn't enjoy the first or third bosses though, because the first boss didn't do anything, and the third boss, his mechanics were weak, and he just died.
I'll tell you, what I did like was rolling the iron stars down the docks. I think there's an achievement in heroic mode for killing all of the Gruul, all the Ogrons in one blow. I think that's one of the meta achievements, or achievement for the Glory of the Hero meta.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to roll that iron star down and kill all of them in one swoop, and I think that's one of the achievements, which seems like a pretty fun game if you were the group that had a little bit of patience, could wait for you to line them all up. I think that's kind of fun. And I also kind of like trying to duck around the crates while you're being blasted on that kind of stretch where you go right out in front of the ship. As far as ads and trash, I think that's a little bit more, how do you call it, interactive than a lot of trash, where you can kind of go at your own pace in other dungeons.
Yeah. And, those guys over there are just going to stare while you murder their friends. What were you about to say, Florian?
Actually, also the iron star firing and the cannon bit, they actually do a really good job of breaking up the monotony of fighting ads, because this dungeon is very ad heavy. There's a whole bunch of them, though a lot of them are skippable. And, it seems like they strategically placed those in spots where you would kind of start to get tired of fighting ads. So there's something else to do for a second or two to keep things interesting.
And they also take out the larger packs more often than not. It's like, wow, that's a lot of dudes. And you look over, they're like, oh, never mind. I'm not supposed to actually kill those guys. Whoosh.
And that in itself is very satisfying.
So, Evan, gameplay grade.
Surprisingly, I'm going to give it a C. I don't think the bosses bring much to the table. However, Florian is a really good point about the ad arrangement breaking up the monotony. You have the very first section where you have a bunch of groups, like a conventional ad arrangement. You have a little bit of a break where you have 2 or 3 big fellas where a DPS can actually kind of get into their DPS rotation and boost the meters a little bit and feel good about, not having to worry about their AoE rotation. I like that as a DPS guy, honestly. Then you have the rolling of the iron stars where you can really cheese the DPS meters, and it throws the total damage for the entire dungeon completely out of kilter. And then if you do well on that, you can skip some mobs. I think the dodging behind the stuff and trying to group up and coordinate to make sure your tank gets there first and these guys heal as fast as possible to get behind the cover. I think that's pretty cool. It makes you think and adds a little bit more of a challenge, aside from just the challenge of taking the pack down itself. The last stretch with the beasts you got in there. So the beasts do a couple of cool AoE mechanics that, just shake it up a little bit. I think the ads really is what saves this dungeon and keeps it a little bit interesting.
At the end of the dungeon, there are dungeons and even raids that I will finish them and I will get done and I will go, oh my god, thank the Lord, that is over. Like, I've done it with a couple of our reviews. I'm just like, oh my god, I'm so glad I'll talk about it and say that I don't like it. But at the end of this dungeon, I didn't feel dissatisfied with the dungeon itself.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's also not all that long.
Like, I have to really give that a little bit of a testament to the dungeon, because there are some dungeons and raids. Like, we were talking about the Mount Hyjal raid. I despise that raid. I have done it only a few times for transmog or achievements or what have you, but I despise that raid. And this dungeon, I felt very satisfied with the gameplay it provided for me. Even if it was easy, it was still enjoyable when I was done with it. And I think that's something to be said about the dungeon. So I'm going to give it a B-. Despite what I just said, I realize that's not exactly, a high-placed grade. It's not a bad one either. Because the first and the third boss were completely just in my mind, non-existent. It really was the second and last that really stuck out for me. That hurts it, and just the trash was good, but and I enjoyed being able to skip it. I feel like it was just a little bit awkward a lot of the times because of the way that they're steering us around the raid with the boxes and stuff like this. Like, honestly, for like the Iron Horde, it must be like a ridiculously disorganized army, with as much stuff as they leave laying around. So B- for me. How about you, Florian?
I think I'm going to give it probably a B- as well. For a lot of the same reasons. There's a whole bunch of trash, but it's not really interesting. They don't have any interesting abilities. None of the bosses feel really unique or interesting except for Skulllock. And yeah, overall it's an okay dungeon, but that's all it is at the end of the day is okay.
All right, so that brings it to a solid B- for gameplay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's there. It's a dungeon. It'll give you loot. And then the third section of the review is lore. Who wants to take it off?
I'll get my thoughts out of the way so that we can move on to your guys' opinions. Probably a little more informed than mine.
All right.
I think we've touched on this in previous episodes about Gorgron being a little bit anemic as far as lore that would explain the existence of, or that would pertain specifically to the Iron Docks and the Grimmail Depot. I think all we really have to go off of is that it's a supply line, and Blackrock Foundry is in the top of Gorgron there. The Iron Pit, like the pit or whatever, is up there, and is where they do a lot of their mining and manufacturing operations, and then they use these supply lines to ship all of their stuff out to other places. I think this is probably how they attacked Shetrath, was from the Iron Docks. They prepared the ships. They built all of the weaponry in the Blackrock Foundry and then put it on the ship, one ship at a time, and then drove the ship out backwards and then went off to its destination. Now we don't have a whole lot of like hands-on questing where we're getting up with our faction heroes and then going off to, these places and like really getting in there. I think I'm kind of surprised that we ended up in this 5-man dungeon at the very beginning. I'm like, okay, I haven't heard of this place. Why am I here? Duratan hasn't told me, we have to get the Iron Docks. There isn't really any quests that lead me up to there. And to be fair, I might have missed them all. I'm not positive.
The actual idea behind the raid is that we are trying to get to the Iron Docks before the Iron Fleet leaves to go siege Shetrath.
Right.
But we're too late. Almost all of the boats have already left when we get there. But since we're already there, and there's, Iron Horde forces there, we go in to wipe them out.
And then where'd you get that impression from?
We found, there's information on that in, if I remember right, some of it's in the dialogue. Like, the two guys talking, talk about it. About how we're there and how the boat that is there that Skulllock is on was supposed to have left with the rest of the fleet just a few moments prior.
Oh, yes.
But then the captain was like, no, we're going to stay here because whatever reason he said.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of lore there. And then this kind of goes back to what I might have said a couple episodes ago when we were talking about the depot, where I think originally it might have been part of the plan that these dungeons would have been released concurrently with Blackrock Foundry. And if I'm not mistaken, there was some kind of talk about there being a questing hub that was going to be introduced with the 6.1 patcher with the Blackrock Foundry release.
Mm-hmm.
In Northern Gorgron, am I correct in assuming that?
That is correct.
Okay, so
there'll be a daily quest hub.
It would have made more sense if these 5-man dungeons were introduced along with them, but then again, that wouldn't have left very much for us to play from the beginning. Yeah, so that's a little bit. That's all I really have to say about lore. Is that it's a little bit anemic. I feel like there should be more game world, like in the actual world. Substance that kind of propels us into this, rather than us just arriving there because we queued for a random dungeon,
Well, we've talked about this previously, about how a lot of the times raids and dungeons and stuff need more lead up, just so that we feel as though there is a more evident reason why we are there.
Mm-hmm. which is a lot of what we got rid of in the old world when Cataclysm launched, because back in Vanilla and Burning Crusade, you were questing in a zone, and you had quite a number of quests that would kind of culminate in going to that dungeon.
Well, that was the basis around original attunements. You had to get attuned to the dungeon, to the raid, so you could even go inside, and those attunement quests would tell you why.
But even if you were just going to, say, the Sunken Temple, and you were in the Swamp of Sorrows, I think
you were a masochist? Is that what you're trying to say?
Back in the day, the Sunken Temple had 2 levels and like 6 other bosses, too. That was a maze. Oh, man. What a nightmare.
Like I said, if you were a masochist.
And people, like, when you started leveling up really quickly with heirlooms and everything, you could go into this dungeon, like, even like the Wailing Caverns. You'd appear there at the dungeon finder, and then you wouldn't have a single quest, because none of the quests started in the dungeon at all. Maybe one. Most of the quests started with, a quest line that came from different zones, even sometimes. But yeah, they consolidated all of that. And then so it's very much a culture of, oh, you've shown up, thank God, here's what we need you to do at the entrance to the dungeon, whatever. Don't explain how you got here yourself past the, never mind. Getting to the entrance is hard sometimes, even in and of itself, but, yeah, so a little bit it gets lost. And I'd like to see this kind of propulsion coming from the zone itself, like you see in Shadow Moon Valley is a great example. It's a lot of this, let's fight Ner'zhul, we're trying to get at him, he's doing stuff, this and that. Now he's finally in Shadow Moon Valley. I don't remember whether or not anybody ever actually says, go now, go to the burial grounds, there he is. But I feel like there's a lot more of a backstory when I finally arrive.
I believe you get something touching towards him going there when he escapes that very last time, when he summons when he goes all shadowified. Right. When Velen becomes the Naru.
Oh, yes.
Because he, his magic is super cool. A couple points he does the standard, like, doorway looking thing, but in that cinematic, he literally just, like, crumbles away into shadow, which is actually him teleporting away, which is incredibly amazing looking.
Oh, yeah.
Irrelevant, though. What about you, Florin? Where were you at on this?
Honestly, I was just trying to figure out why we're here and what we're doing here, because I don't remember any quests in Gorgrond or anywhere that told me anything about what was going on at the Iron Docks. Gorgrond was pretty much run around and deal with the Botany, run around and deal with this other stuff going on, and, there was never any quests that said, go north, go handle this Iron Docks stuff. So I'm kind of in the same boat where I wish there had been some quests to lead up to this and explain a little of what's going on, because I'm like, I know now that you've said something that we went there to try to stop those boats from leaving to attack Shadrath, but previously I did not know this. I couldn't find it anywhere in game. I couldn't find it in the dungeon journal information, and I read through all of it. I even Googled, why are we at the Iron Docks? I could not find any information. So I don't even know what you're getting this from.
I am getting this purely based off of speculation from what the ship captain says when we get there. Exactly.
So it's way too vague and arcane. We don't know why we're there. We don't know who any of the bosses are. They're just some guys. Except Skrullock, he's the son of Gruul.
Which, how many kids has this friggin' Gron had, by the way? Because I don't remember any mention of his children in the original Burning Crusade when we find Gruul the first time. And we come across 2 of them in Gorgrond. One in the Iron Docks and one at the end of the quest chain when you're fighting with the artifact thing.
Well, 2 doesn't seem like that many. And then also we have no idea how Grons work or how they reproduce. Maybe they're like insects and they just lay like 300 eggs.
I don't know. He seems kind of mammalian to me. They call him in the Burning Crusade Gruul the Dragon Slayer, but maybe they should have called him Gruul the Lady Killer.
There are no female Gron that we've seen.
Oh.
But, I mean, it's not like we've seen that many female ogres anyway.
Well, maybe they split in half and reproduce asexually.
Creepy. Florian, lore grade.
Lore grade, I'm going to give it an F. Because there's just straight up, there's no lore. I mean, like, if I can't find the lore, it probably doesn't exist. And I am not happy about that.
I'm so happy right now, and I don't know why. I think is this the first F that any of us have handed out?
No, I think something else got an F.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I don't know. I can go look at old show notes.
Yeah.
Evan, lore grade.
I'm going to give it a C.
Wow.
I'm going to give it a C because it makes sense that a huge weapons facility would have some way to get their weapons to other parts of the continent. Not because we're being drawn in with quests, but just because it makes logical sense that a place like this would exist.
Yeah, the most reasonable lore behind it is the expansion is derived from getting here to stop the Iron Horde before they flood into Azeroth. This is one of their outposts, destroy outpost.
Right. And coming from having discussions like, okay, we're in High Mall, it's the Imperator's little, the Capitol building or whatever, government hall, and yet there's no tables or plates or beds or curtains or anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't make practical sense. This makes practical sense. And I'm going to hand it to Blizzard here, practical sense that there would be a dock. It kind of reminds me of the Dead Mines, actually. It's like...
Well, and there is lots of structure that's built into the building that we don't get to go inside. And there's also the second level. There's a second little plateau area that they've built that we don't get to go to either.
Right. So I like the fact that it's kind of like... you have Ice Crown Citadels or Raid, and then you also have, the 5-man dungeons that, like the Pit of Sarn and everything, when you're going around the 5-mans and Chase and Lich King around and Sylvanas is with you. That's on the Citadel itself, is that right?
Yes.
They're just in Ice Crown. It's all the architecture and everything. I think, because, yeah.
Yes, it is.
So this is what I'm kind of considering is BlackRock Foundry is a raid, and then these are also kind of parts of it. It feeds into that whole lore. I think it does help to illustrate the entire storyline that's happening right now, even if it doesn't explicitly give us any more details. The fact that it exists kind of indicates that Blizzard is paying attention to details, at least on a minuscule degree.
Essentially, it is what it is.
Exactly.
The story behind it is that it is what you think it is.
And then, although that would be enough to elevate it to a D, I also think that integrating this story with the temporal association with what's happening in Shattrath right now, just even pulling in some other part, even if the only thing it can do is to pull in some other part of the world as it's happening to make it relevant, I'll give it some credit for having done that.
All right. My grade is a D, and for basically what Evan just said, except it's not as credible to me. I will give things the respect of that sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Don't try and make it more than it is, but also if you ask me to tell you about, how story-driven that cigar is, it's not going to get a whole lot of credit from me. So it gets a D from me, which puts the lore grade for this at a solid, nice and low D, which brings the grade for the entire dungeon at pretty much a flat C. Not bad. There's been worse ones. The lore in it's completely flat. The gameplay is really easy. And you will not remember this dungeon after you do it, is the thing that I should put. And C is average, and this dungeon is incredibly average. I mean, there's some bad stuff, there's some okay stuff, and it's a dungeon.
We'll put it into context here. This is average 4. It might be a little bit below average for the quality standard that's been set by this expansion that is kind of marked by all these really sweet dungeons, and a couple of ones that aren't as sweet. But compared to some of the old dungeons, especially in the first 2 or 3 iterations of WoW, I mean, this place is easy to navigate. The bosses aren't obnoxious. It isn't a maze. It doesn't require a PhD to get through the thing, and it doesn't take all that much time. I think C is a fair grade, and it's not like... I just don't want to be as pessimistic about the whole thing as I feel like I was during the gameplay grade. The bosses really aren't all that inspiring, but on the whole, it could be so much worse. And
basically, it's a dungeon. It'll get you loot. It's quick to do. You won't remember it. You won't hate it. Go do it, get your loot, and leave. It's not anything that you're really going to be excited about. It's not something we'll talk about again later. You hear us...
maybe.
Well, maybe, but I doubt it. We have other things that we flash back to much more often. But Solid C, it's average.
Like the Abyssal Maw.
But that takes us to the end of the show. As always, you can contact the show at our email, which is thecastbar@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at castbarpodcast. Colin leaves the voicemail at 508-738-2278. You can also check out our shows on YouTube now. I don't have a custom URL for the YouTube because until you get like 500 subscribers, have been on YouTube for like 3 months, and have like 100,000 YouTube views, you don't actually get a custom URL. So just just search for the Castbar and we should show up. You can find all of our old shows on YouTube, Stitcher, and iTunes. We do appreciate iTunes reviews. They don't have to be 5 stars. Any feedback to us is good feedback, so we can know what we can improve on or what you enjoy, so that we can do more of that. And particularly if you do vote, put 5 stars on there. That does actually help the show because it makes us appear higher on search results. The music for our bumpers is done by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incomtech.com. It is, I believe all of it is royalty free. It's all licensed under the Creative Commons license. So give him credit or buy him and you don't have to give him credit. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, send an email to my attention at the email, which is thecastbar@gmail.com. Or I have my own Twitter. I am not very active on Twitter because I still don't fully understand the concept of how I'm supposed to use this on a more regular basis. And my Twitter handle is @SchwanMichael. My last name is Schwan, which is spelled SCHWAHN. Evan, where can people find you?
You can find me by sending an email to my attention to thecastbar@gmail.com. Also, I'm also on Twitter. Haven't started posting all the selfies yet, but that will come with 6.1, hopefully. And my Twitter handle is @EDCWow.
Wonderful. And Florian, if people want to talk to you.
If they do want to talk to me for reasons I don't entirely understand, they can find me on Twitter at Phalanx, spelled F-A-L-A-N-G-X, because I'm not entirely sure how to spell words. And you can also write me at the Castbar if you need to write something longer than a tweet.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you, and have a wonderful day. Take it easy, guys.
See you.
You are out of time.